Most buyers decide how they feel about a home within the first 30 seconds of walking inside. And what surprises most sellers, it's usually not the things they spend the most money on. Let me show you exactly what buyers notice immediately and why it matters to you if you ever plan to sell. Buyers don't walk in logically, they walk in emotionally. It's gonna be those subconscious things that matter most at the end of the day. And lastly, once those first impressions are set, it's gonna be really hard to reverse them. Everything I'm about to share happens before buyers start opening your cabinets or measuring the rooms of the house. So first in line is actually gonna be the smell of your home. If that buyer walks through your door and you have some funny smell or something that maybe you even become adjusted to, like pets, for example, that can send a negative signal to the buyer, and they may not even realize it right away, but that can immediately affect their emotional energy walking through the room. So smell is definitely something that you really want to keep in mind, because if someone has a bad smell in their nose, it's going to be very difficult to get them emotionally attached to your home. Some key things to keep in mind is you don't want to have air fresheners that are too strong. That can actually work against you in the opposite way. It can kind of put a signal in their head like, oh, maybe they're trying to cover up a smell. So you want to be aware of that. But you just want to keep in mind of those smells, because that's going to be one of the first subconscious things that a buyer will experience. So number 2 on the list is going to be the natural light of your home, or just lighting in general. So that obviously comes from windows and doors, but it also can come from the light fixtures in your home. If you have dark spaces like dark corners or dark rooms that just aren't well lit, it might be beneficial to go out and thrift for some lamps. I strongly advise you open all of your blinds before a showing. Get all that natural light in as much as possible, because if a place is dark, it's actually going to send not as good of a signal to the buyer. That is something that is subconsciously felt as you're walking through a home, and it does make the place feel smaller and more closed off as well if it's dark. All right, so number 3 is actually the entry moment. That is the moment that that buyer walks through your front door. And key things to keep in mind is has the front door been painted recently? Are there scratch marks? Things that could just easily tell a buyer, oh, this home may not be taken care of as well, just by those little signals. Also the flooring right as you walk in your front door, is the hardwood in good condition? Are there scratches visible? If there's carpet, is there stains? Those little things, those are just key details that really matter, and it actually makes the rest of the house have to work harder to overcome that moment if that moment is not well executed. So you just want to really pay attention to those details through your entryway. And ideally you want to have every showing go through the main entrance of the home, so that they get the more open feel. Try to avoid having them go in through your garage if possible, even if that is your owner's entry. It's just going to give a way better feel and vibe if you actually have them walk through the main entrance, the front door. 4th on the list is going to be noise. So, is there going to be noises in the background like a barking dog, road noise? Are you close proximity to a road? Just anything that could signal, like even if you're close to a train track, anything that could signal, can I live with this to the buyer? Now, obviously every property is different and you can't fix some of these items, but silence does feel more expensive to the buyer. It just sends a more private feel, and most buyers are willing to pay more for that. All right, number 5 on the list is actually cleanliness and clutter. Ideally, before every showing, you want to make sure your home is decluttered. And also, clean does not equal staged. Those are actually 2 different things. You can have too much furniture in a room, which makes the room feel smaller. A lot of times, moving some furniture out to make the space feel more open and airy can help. But you don't want to remove too much furniture where it makes the buyer have to really think about how to use a space. Use furniture where applicable, but don't overuse it. Also, you want to depersonalize, so photos of your family members and stuff like that, go ahead and get rid of that, so that that buyer can really envision themselves living there, and so they don't feel like they're walking through someone else's home. They actually feel like they're walking through their new home. That is the experience you want the buyer to have as they're touring your property. All right, guys, so number 6 on the list is the invisible things. Think the temperature of your home. If it's dead middle of winter and it feels cold, the buyer might start to feel like, oh, maybe there's something wrong with the heating system. Or if it's in the middle of summer and it feels really warm in there, you just want to make sure that the temperature is comfortable and that they're just not going to notice the temperature. That's what you want. You just don't want them to notice. Other invisible things are going to be like scuffs on the floors or baseboards, even transition strips from one type of flooring to the next. If those are done weirdly to where you can almost get tripped up on it, for example, just little tiny details that you may not even notice anymore because you've been in the home so much. But if you put on your buyer lens and actually walk through your home and try to reduce some of these things, it's really going to help whenever you start getting showings. So now let's talk about why first impressions are hard to fix. It's really, the first impression is what sets the mood. And ultimately, if someone has a bad experience right off the rip, like if they notice the front door needs to be painted or that there's scuffs on the baseboards like we just talked about as they walk through the front door, they're immediately going to shift in their mindset and they're going to start looking for other problems. That is just how that works. Versus if they're wowed right off the get-go, where the landscaping is nice, the driveway is nice and cleanly kept, front door brand new paint, baseboards no issues as they walk through. That's going to send a much different experience than the first option we just talked about. They're going to actually be envisioning themselves living there versus just trying to pick every little thing apart. So if you're considering selling your property in North Georgia anytime soon, check out the rest of my YouTube channel. Specifically the Tips for Home Sellers playlist. I think you'll find good use out of that. I also have a blog, Tips for Home Sellers in North Georgia, and I'll link to that in my description below. And both of those are great resources. It just really outlines some tips to be aware of if you're looking to sell in the area. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.